the Super Bowl champion Chiefs might have a roster that looks very different in 2020 than it did in 2019 for that Super Bowl run. Let's take a look at the offensive free agents. Welcome back to RGR, folks. I'm Ryan. This is me going rogue on the NFL and the Kansas City Chiefs. Today, we are going to dig into what the free agency looks like on the offensive side of the roster for the Kansas City Chiefs. Now that they've gotten through Super Bowl 54, championship under their belt, things do change. We're going to take a look at the overview of who's up for free agency and what the different statuses are, in particular, on the offensive side of the ball. We'll come back next week and look at the defense after the combine goes off. And there'll be plenty about that. I want to give a shout out to my favorite New Orleans restaurant, Cochon. Hope you guys get a chance to get there. Great eats, on my opinion. And just got a new hat from them, so I appreciate that. Anyway, back to what we're going to be doing today. A lot is going to be dependent on how we're going to take a look at what the Chiefs have done with their offensive side of the ball. We're going to use both of the major sources of information for contracts, stuff that the NFL.com actually references as well. This is all based on information that they get from different sources. Both Over the Cap and Spot Track use both information from agents, information from players, maybe some inside stuff from the league officials themselves, maybe team sources. You never quite know. It all comes out, and there's a little bit of differences back and forth, but overall, these two sites can put together a good picture of what's going on in free agency. There's always some curves, but we'll take a look at those. Just to start off with, here's a look at where the Chiefs are in 2020. Cap liabilities, they've got some dead money still going to Eric Berry, and that's something to keep an eye on. And this cap space is calculated as of right now. I think they've got some outstanding 90-man roster contracts out there that knock that down a little bit. That's going to change as they go through here. A number of things are going to change league year. League year ends, I believe it's the 17th, and the new league year begins the 18th of March. So that is going to be tied to some of the things that you're going to see going forward with tags, etc., and a couple of things that we're going to look at here today. So I just want to start. Here's your top earning salaries for this team in this year. Right now, cap numbers look like Frank's jumping up quite a bit. Sammy's obviously something that we've talked about in the past, but we're going to flip over now and look at who is up for free agency. And that list is dramatically shorter. And we're going to start here at the top. And I want to point out one thing. As you notice, the top guys on this list are all in their 30s. I think that's really interesting because that means that the team is structuring contracts in a way that puts them at the ability to say yes or no, walk away from, re-sign if they want, make decisions in the 30s, and that's important. Chad Henne earned a lot of money last year. I don't think that he's going to be back. I don't see any reason. He's unrestricted. I think someone will give him a contract. LaShawn McCoy, with the way that he faded during the season, I don't think that there's going to be a return to Kansas City. I do expect him to move on. He did play a lot of snaps. When you look at this list of who played a lot of snaps, it's pretty interesting to see that. But the mystery beyond his postseason lack of a run, etc., I think that kind of seals the deal. I don't expect him to be back. Matt Moore is the big question mark. I could see Matt Moore coming back, even though he is the oldest guy on this particular list. At 36, I thought he played really well in relief of Mahomes in 19. Should they have to do that again? I think Andy's very comfortable with him at this point. I could see him taking a really basic deal. Again, $1 million, maybe, Super Bowl bump, $2 million, 1-year contract kind of thing. I could see that happening. I'd love to see something strange happen, like a free agent. I'd love to see Marcus Mariota come to Kansas City and do kind of the Taysom Hill thing and move some, it's a copycat league. Even Andy's going to take things from other teams and kind of involve them into the offense, twist them a little bit and make them his. I expect to see some more out of the fullback position, a lot like you saw with Juszczyk in the Super Bowl. I think that made an impression. I think those are things that you can do on this team, especially with a guy like John Lovett, who I'm really excited to see in this next offseason. Just a whole other wrinkle that Andy can add to this offense. And something like a Taysom Hill is another similar option. I think Hill goes back to New Orleans, but, Mariota, Andy was pretty high on Mariota coming out, and I'd like to see him take a cheap backup contract. I think it'd be interesting, but that's neither here or there. I think Matt Moore is probably a really good shot at taking that contract, despite anything else. And I think that should make the Chiefs Kingdom pretty comfortable. I thought he played well, and I thought he did a good job for it. My guy Anthony Sherm is on this list. Now, we all know Sherm doesn't get a whole lot of snaps, but when he does, he makes the most of them. He sprung Damian on that last touchdown in the Super Bowl. He's a leader on the special teams, and I do think that gets him another contract back. It may just be a year-to-year thing for Anthony Sherman to play out the rest of his career. He is up there in age at 32. I'm not sure the birth date, so he might even be a year older by the time camp starts. But a guy that I think has earned his way back. I love him, and you know that you can depend on him when you need him. So I think he's a great guy. Andy loves him. I could see him coming back pretty easily. Interesting here is Steve Wisniewski. Sorry, Stefan, I always mispronounce, but you guys heard me talk all up and down about Wiz and his needing to be on the field because of the status of the other guards. And I think it really paid off. I thought you saw him play pretty well in the Super Bowl. I think that veteran experience was the difference in making some blocks versus other. I would like to see him come back. Now, he's 31. We know that he's slowed down from his previous years, but he was still able to get the job done. And I do think another season, he can probably do the same. Now, I don't know that you want to sign him as a starter. I love him as a backup that comes in, and maybe whether it's due to injury or not, but to give you a lift, just like he did in the postseason this last season. He's one of those guys that when Brett Veach talked about signing for the postseason, I think that's something you could see happen again. He can help you make a run, especially if you go with a young guy at that left guard spot. We'll talk about that in a second. The big question mark is going to be Blake Bell. I know a lot of you had an eye on Demetrius Harris. He did end up signing in Chicago rather quickly, so that's kind of a done deal at this point. So that kind of leads towards both he and Yelder are free agents. Yelder's going to get tendered here. We'll talk about that in a second. Not sure about David Wells, but I do think that draft option for tight end is out there as well. And I'm not sure exactly how the team feels about Blake Bell. I could take him or leave him. I thought he gave him some good reps. I thought Yelder gave him some good catches too. Yelder's a lot younger and needs polish. I didn't realize Blake Bell was 29 years old. So that does change things. I don't know if you can count on him to be springy here for terribly much longer. So I might try to get Young behind Travis Kelce and get somebody else in there. I personally probably would not re-sign him and look to do something, get somebody in there that's a little bit more dynamic. Spencer Ware's on this list. And while a fan favorite, I think he's shown that what he can do can help, but I don't know that he's a priority. He's 29 years old at this point. I think it's going to be a youth movement. You're going to find more players available. It could be a late round draft pick, could be some more free agent signings out of the draft class. But I think now with Damian, with Darrell on the mend, and with Darwin, I do feel it's like going to be the three of them going forward. And they may add to that maybe a veteran presence. I think that would be important. But nobody that's going to cost a lot of money and possibly another draft pick as well. You have Elijah McGuire on the practice squad. I believe he's still signed there. So you can always bring him up as well. I think he's shown some potential, but right now, I think Damian's squarely in the lead, especially with LaShawn leaving. Darrell and Darwin bringing it up behind that in their specific kind of roles. So I don't think Spencer Ware is going to be back. Same with Demarcus Robinson. I think someone's going to give him a contract. He's made enough splash plays. It's unfortunate it took until the last year of his contract for him to actually put up some big splash plays. But I think that he did, and I think someone's going to sign him. I would not be surprised if it also is Chicago. I think that might be something for Matt Nagy to kind of hang his hat on and help Trubisky progress. I don't know that I actually believe Tom Brady might end up there. We'll see. But I think DeMarcus could end up over there. And those are all the unlisted, untethered, nothing to it, totally open free agents that they can just walk. Then comes the restricted. And these happen to be all exclusive rights restricted free agents. Marcus Kemp, obviously, big special teams player, a guy Dave Tobe likes, but he got hurt last season. I believe he'll be tendered, and I believe they'll bring him back. I can't remember. Marcus was a UDFA, so I think I don't expect the tender to be much, but I don't think anybody's going to be looking to lift him, especially coming off of an injury. So Marcus Kemp comes back to the roster, I'm pretty sure. And here's the big question for me. Andrew Wiley. Other than LaShawn McCoy, Andrew Wiley down the stretch might have been the biggest question mark that we had in 20, all the way up to the Super Bowl. I don't know what his status is. I could see them letting him go. I can see them putting either a super low tender or no tender at all on him. I just don't know what they want to do with him. And I feel that that's kind of a big question mark because that's one of the weakest positions on that offensive line, especially if you assume that even if Wiz comes back, he's a part-time player. So this is easily, this and center, the two positions on the offensive line that I feel that they need to upgrade immediately. I do feel like there are some options at guard that are experienced at guard in this draft that I think could really pay off. So I expect them to take them. I don't know what to expect with Andrew Wiley. Could he be back to compete for a job? Possibly. Could they allow him to walk? That's just as possible as well. We're going to have to find out and see what happens because the radio silence out of Arrowhead Drive has just not given us much of a clue as to what exactly is going on. And then to finish it up, the two tight ends. I talked about Yelder earlier. I thought he showed some flashes. I do feel like his athleticism is still there for the taking. It helps him. I was high on him coming out. I think he's made some small progression, but I think in order to continue to get better, he's got to get more reps. And so that's, again, part of the Blake Bell thing. I would let him go, let Yelder ascend to the number 2, unless you draft somebody to be a dynamic. If you want to run more 2 tight end sets in 2020, which I think is kind of a good idea, I could see them doing that as well, which I think Yelder is the 3rd. Okay, that's fine. You don't have a ton invested in him. I think David Wells is probably a camp body at this point. I don't see him making an impact during the season. I just don't see the athleticism there. I don't see anything that gives you a matchup in either way, in run blocking or in the pass game. So I don't see a whole lot of an advantage to keeping him. But you can practice with him. He can probably help you out that and fill a couple of roles as a practice squad player. So maybe that's what happens. Now this is certainly kind of the easier side of the Chiefs free agency. We'll come back and we'll talk about the defense next week. But this side, I think, is here. So I'm really looking for them not to bring back a ton of these players. I expect Sherm back. I'd like to see Wiz, but I'm not sure of it. I expect Kemp. And I kind of expect Yelder. So 4 out of these guys. And then the question mark about Wiley. So we'll just have to see. If you're new here, make sure you get subbed. Click the bell for the notification. We're going to have a long offseason. And I'm going to get in after the Chiefs free agency. We're going to start talking about the draft. All the athleticism, all the selections, all the options out there. I'll run down some options for the Chiefs. I'll run down the athleticism. We'll have the athletic matrix release here, and I'll give you the top 10s. It's going to be a great offseason, so make sure you're clicked here. Leave your comment here. Who's the guys that you want to see come back out of this list? Put your comments down below, and if you like this one, leave that thumbs up. Appreciate you checking out this one and whatever else comes up on your screen, and I'll catch you next time.